Welcome to episode 7 of Stories with Shomik. Today's guest is incredible, to put it in the simplest of terms. I first learned of Cooks Who Feed and Seema in December 2019 at an event called the Idea Jam. And I was completely blown away by the mission. One of the things I feel very strongly about is that in today's day and age, with all the advancements in technology, there is no reason for anyone to go hungry. And when I heard Seema talk about the company, it immediately became clear that this is not just a company, it's meant to be a movement. And I was super inspired. I wanted to connect with her in 2020, but then, the world kind of shut down. And since then, Cooks Who Feed has gone on to scale massive heights and has distributed more than 1.7 million meals. I actually just got goosebumps saying that. This meeting is only 4 years in the making, but hey, now we have a podcast. So not only can I learn about Seema's journey and story, so can you. With that, Seema, welcome to Stories with Shomik. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. First off, happy Friday. We love a sunny Friday in Toronto. Secondly, for our listeners, what does Cooks Who Feed do?
For sure. So we ethically produce kitchen textiles that have a give back model. So that provides meals. So our flagship product are our organic canvas aprons. And for every apron sold, we provide 100 meals. And we do that we have charity partners around the globe that recover surplus food. So they're reducing food waste and then using that surplus food to provide fresh meals to those in need. And as you mentioned, to date, through the sale of our textiles, we have provided just over 1.7 million meals.
Amazing. So before we get more into the story of Cooks Who Feed, I want to know about your origin story. How did you end up in the social entrepreneurship space?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I didn't study this in school or anything like that. I think I just always wanted to. I always thought I'd work for a company. I never, to be honest, saw myself as an entrepreneur. I always thought I would end up working for a company that was doing something impactful. And for me, impactful, for me, that meant helping people who don't have opportunity, the same opportunities that you and I may have.
Right.
People who are not fully able to help themselves because of their situation. And I've always envisioned that would be the type of company that I would work for. And when I was studying in school, I did business. I did my master's. I did my master's in business as well. And just, I think during that time, really recognizing that so many of the companies out there, the focus was purely on profit. And I get it. I get that you need to make money to survive. But at the same time, we started, when I was in school, maybe I'm giving away my age now, started to see and hear of companies that were doing things a little bit differently. And I remember hearing about Tom's shoes. You buy a pair, that means they give a pair. And I remember just being so inspired by, a company that was, hey, here's an example of a company that's making money, but not causing additional problems while they're running their company. They're actually solving problems. They're actually making the world a better place. So the world is actually a better place because this company exists. That really was such an eye opener, because up until that point I thought, oh, then you have to be a charity, right? Because your sole mission is to help others. That's the charity. So not really necessarily focused on profit. And when I started hearing about these different companies, there's, I'm trying to remember, there's another company that does boots, and same thing. You buy a pair of boots, they give a pair of boots, right? And now you have Warby Parker, you buy a pair of glasses, they give a pair of glasses. And I love that whole, when you buy something from this company, the impact that you're making. And I love that transparency. And that's I think just learning about all these examples through business school made me realize that I thought I'd work for one of these companies. And through like my own personal journey, realized, hey, maybe I can start something that would have impact.
Very cool. Yeah, because like I was looking through your LinkedIn, and like you've had a pretty successful career pre Cooks Who Feed as well in the conventional sense. And yeah, so I am curious, like, what was that moment when you decided that, okay, you know what, I'm going to quit my current full-time job and focus completely on Cooks Who Feed?
There was a few different things. It wasn't like there wasn't just one moment. I think for me, I've always been a foodie. I love to cook. I love to eat. I started cooking when I was really young, like around 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really young. Both my parents worked. Like I think a typical immigrant parents, right? They worked all the time, and so myself and my siblings were home a lot. No one else really enjoyed cooking, so it was either learn to cook or we're going to have to make what someone else makes, which is going to be gross, right? So, and being in that position, I realized I love to cook, and I love cooking for others. Like I love cooking something and someone eating it and enjoying it. That's always made me feel good. And I actually wanted to become a chef. I grew up thinking I'm going to be a chef. And unfortunately for me, having typical immigrant parents, they were like, no, that's a hobby. Go to university and either do business.
Did they ask you to be an engineer?
It was more not so rigid. It was more just like, can you do business or sciences? Because,
right.
Cooking, you can cook when you want to cook, cook on the weekends, make things like you can pretend you're a chef on the weekends, but that's not a real job. That was kind of their outlook, which I understand where that comes from, right? They want you to have more than what they had and to have that security, and whether that's a false security or not, they want you to have that, right? So I understand where that comes from, but I've always loved food, and I think that this is a common thing for other foodies and people who love food, is that you're well aware of how many people don't have enough to eat, and for something that gives you so much joy, I can't imagine not having that in my life. I can't imagine looking at food differently, like looking at it more of a survival thing as opposed to an enjoyment thing. And that to me, because it gives me so much joy, it really breaks my heart to know that people don't have that opportunity to look at food that way.
Right.
So always, just really struggled with the fact that there's so many people who don't have enough to eat. And I've always done things, even as like a teenager and in my 20s, even when I was studying, I would volunteer at food banks and do this kind of stuff because it was just something I've always felt passionate about.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do that, right? I think you see a lot of people who give their time to food banks and stuff. They recognize the need, because you'd be surprised on how many people, hunger is not something that just happens in poor countries, right? It happens everywhere.
Absolutely.
It happens here in Toronto. It happens everywhere. And I think when you see people coming to food banks or like soup kitchens or these kind of things, you really then recognize that this is a problem everywhere, and people who you wouldn't even expect to have this problem, right? There's different degrees of it, right? Some people just you need it to get them through a tough time, or for certain days of the week, and some people are there every day, right? So it really varies. But I was, I guess that aha moment that you asked me about, it was in 2016, and I was in India. I was at a friend's wedding, and while I was there, someone had mentioned to me this organization that was hiring women from the villages, teaching them how to be seamstresses and trying to get work for them as seamstresses. And it was close by, and I'm like, I'm going to go and check it out, see the work that they're doing, because that's really neat. And when I went there and I started talking to these women and learning about, this was their first opportunity for a good job, right? Somewhere safe, somewhere with a fair wage, where they felt like they were being treated fairly. I wanted to help. I'm like, there's tons of women all over the world, but my experience at this time was in India. There's a lot of women who want opportunity and just don't have it. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start something where I'm going to employ women and give them opportunity here. And I think it was so personal, right? Because my background's Indian. I know that, my parents sacrificed a lot to come to Canada. And, I'm lucky that I was born and raised in Canada. I think that, I could have easily been one of those women is what I realized in that moment. Like I could have swapped shoes with them and, not have opportunity. And I just really felt like, I should give back. Let me see if I can start something. And I told them that I would start something, not knowing what I was going to do, just being in the moment, said, you know what, I'm going to come back and I'm going to start something and I'll figure it out. Just let me figure it out. And so that kind of was that moment where I'm like, okay, I didn't think I could be an entrepreneur, but I'm going to do something here to help out in whatever shape or form. And it was that same organization that I initially, when I started Cooks Who Feed, they were the ones making all of our aprons and kitchen textiles for us. So I initially started working with them.
I love that. And just like India's economy obviously has gone through a lot of changes over the last couple of decades. A lot of things in the right direction, but that one stat where the progress hasn't been as desirable is number of women in the workforce.
Yeah.
So, companies like yours are definitely doing a lot to help move the needle on that front. And that's super inspiring to hear. The first time when you talked about it at Idea Jam, that was how I got introduced to you and immediately sent you a note on LinkedIn. I was just blown away by the fact that there's an opportunity here. And there's so many things like this. Like, sometimes you just have to take the leap and the net will follow. It's very, very exciting to hear. So you said you started working with them. Like when you started, you were working with this NGO. Do you still work with them or you've expanded the scope?
So we've expanded. Last year, at the end of last year, we decided to start our own production. More so just because, the biggest thing for us was just having that flexibility, right? When you work with a manufacturer, they're also working with other clients, right? So there's no priority. You have to work within their minimums and this kind of thing. And I just found that it really slowed down our growth to have those restrictions in place. And I just thought there was also things that I wanted to do differently. Not to say they're doing a great job. I support them. Yeah. I still think they're doing a wonderful job. But for me, I wanted to incorporate other things. So I wanted to look like now. So we started our own production last year. So we incorporated a feeding program. So all the women get a free, healthy lunch while they're working there. And that's, to me, it's the mission's about feeding, right? So it just made sense to kind of incorporate that. And as we grow, there's certain projects that I want to incorporate in our production. Like, for example, I want to see if can we hire women, not only then as seamstresses, can we actually have a little kitchen where we hire women who don't have the skill set to be seamstresses, but they can cook and they can now start making meals that these ladies can take home. Because by working with these women.
Wow, I love that.
Well, one of the biggest hurdles for these women when it comes to working full time is that a lot of them live in homes where it's, they have multi-generational families, right? They've got their in-laws or their parents, and they've got their children. They might have their spouse's family living in the same house. And a lot of them, they go home and then they have to make food for everyone. And it's exhausting. Like here, I come, after I come home from work, I cook for, my little family. So I can't imagine having to do, so much for so many people. So I'm like, how do we make their lives a bit easier and ensure that their families, especially their children, are getting the nutrition they need? So
absolutely,
that's another thing that now I'm working towards is as we grow, this is what I want to incorporate into our production, where we're not only hiring seamstresses, we're hiring women to cook, and they can provide the whole team can take home food for their family. So it just makes their life a little bit more manageable. And, I find when you're trying to get out of poverty, you need more than just someone to give you a job. There's extra support that's needed. right? So I
Okay.
looking at things like how can we provide enough nutrition for their families, how can we provide vaccination for their children, how can we provide maybe down the road I would love to see if we could do scholarships for their children and send them to private schools as opposed to schools in the village where they may not be getting the best education. So how do we do that? How do we get that family out of poverty?
I think I've said wow more times in the first 15 minutes of our chat than I've done in like all the episodes I've recorded in the past. This is very, very interesting. I've looked at poverty as, of course, we got to help them get employment, but I never thought about all the things around it because, yes, of course, one aspect of it is the economic aspect of it, which is them getting paid for the job and that. But I never thought about all the supporting things.
Yeah, because I think especially in countries like India, it's, yes, having a fair salary and a safe place to work is so important. But all it takes is for like one member of the family to get sick, and then that's where all the resources are going now. So how do we put in these preventative measures, right? Like how do we make sure that the kids are eating healthy and people are getting vaccinated, and there's so many because you hear this all the time, like of stories where someone is they got a job and they're doing well and the family is starting to like have a better standard of living, and then something devastating happens. Life happens, right? So you can't prevent life from happening, but what can you do to help soften the blow? What can you do to try to lessen the chances of someone in your family getting really ill? And
for sure,
there's a lot when you're trying to get someone out of poverty at that level. There's so many other things that you can do to kind of speed up that process and make it more of, improve the chances of that happening. So that next generation, their children will live a different lifestyle.
Absolutely. That is very, very insightful. I was actually reading a report a couple of weeks ago because I've been, for the last couple of years, I started becoming more mindful of what I eat and just become more focused on nutrition. And as I started reading more, because like the traditional Indian diet is not necessarily the most protein intensive. It has typically been more carb heavy, which made sense when we were primarily agrarian and movement was a lot more physical than what it is now. And as a result of that, I think India ranks very low on the protein consumption index. And that is something that I've been looking for more ways to sort of get involved in. Starting with my mother, for example. I've just been telling her, can you please eat more protein? Because growing up in India for us, in this case, eating more protein in the sense of eating it from a meat perspective, so chicken, fish, eggs, whatever it is, typically tends to be more of a weekend meal. You eat your fish, and I'm Bengali, so I grew up eating like fish and chicken, but it was typically a weekend thing. During the weekdays, it's usually rice,
I get
dal,
that.
and veggies. Yeah. So I'd love to do my part.
That's a whole different discussion.
massive. Yeah.
The whole lack of emphasis on health, I find, in India, and physical exercise and nutrition is mind-boggling.
It is getting better, though, I have to say. This time, when I went back, my friends in India are, like, people my age are starting to get a little more conscious about it. They're like, okay, you know what, I just turned 30 last year, and my friends are beginning to realize that, hey, the body isn't going to deal with this stuff that it did even 5 years ago. Like, you can't just keep pushing your body and abusing it the way we have in the past. And that change is starting to happen. And like, hopefully the next generation will be fitter, because my nephews and nieces, they're like between the ages of 14 and 18, and they're a lot fitter. Like, they're growing up playing sport, something that I never really did much of. So that change is happening. But yeah, it's tough to convince the older generation that, hey, can you just please go for a walk and try lifting some weights? That is definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Both my parents are, like my dad's 86 this year. So yeah, I've seen it. Lucky though that I think because they moved to Canada like over 50 years ago. So the influence, the culture here, prioritizing health and what you eat, that's really helped a lot. So, they do go to the gym, thank goodness, and
that's awesome.
And try to be healthy, and they at least recognize the importance. And they do eat very clean, and yeah, but the whole protein thing, yeah, I'm with you because they're both vegetarian. So trying to get them to incorporate enough protein is I think it's just going to be a constant. It'll be a constant challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the best things that I was able to do was I realized my mom she's still in India. She's 70 now. And her thing is she will not exercise at all. But if there's an instructor who comes 3 times a week and she has no choice but to do it, she'll do it. And, fortunately, I could hire a personal instructor who just shows up 3 times a week and helps her work out. And now she's been doing it for a year, and it's been mind-boggling to see the difference in her fitness and energy levels. With just a year of working out, and she started when she was 69. And this time when I went to see her, and I was just blown away by the fact that she was walking around a lot more quickly, and she looked better, she felt better, her energy levels are through the roof. And it's amazing, like even at that age, the human body adapts so quickly to all the good things that we give it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So going back to Kuksu Feet. So when you started, what was the most surprising thing that hit you that, I should have done a little more research about running a business? And it's possible you didn't feel that at all.
I think just the opposite. I feel like that every day. Yeah, I mean, I never thought I could be an entrepreneur. Actually, I shouldn't say I never thought I could. I just never thought of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's changed now, which is good. But when I was in business school, and then when I went and did my master's, there was not like so much of a focus on entrepreneurship. It was prepping you to go work for a corporation. I think when I graduated, like I went to Shomik, and I think when I graduated, everyone was like, okay, I want to go work for, Deloitte, or I want to go work here. And like, it was not, it just seemed like entrepreneurship wasn't something that was really what you did. But now it's great to see that it is now being promoted within the universities and so on. And there's a great, obviously, startup community in Toronto itself. Yeah. Like, so for me, I think I was well aware of what, like, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I knew enough to know there's a lot I don't know. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would have to learn a lot. And it has been, that's been the case, like every step, right? So when I launched Kuksu Feed, we started off doing a Kickstarter because I thought, I don't want to just assume people are going to buy this product. So let me see, would people buy this product? So I thought, what better way than a crowdfunding campaign? So luckily we did meet our goal, and that helped us fund the first production run. So just doing, I'm like, well, how do you do a crowdfunding campaign? Just, the first, it's like, well, how do we do this? And I feel like that all the time. It's like, oh, this is the next natural step. Okay, so what do I need to learn to do that? What does that encompass? Like, now we're at a stage now where I'm actively trying to see, can we get into retail? And I'm like, I'm trying to understand, well, what does that mean? Like, how is that going to change the way we run our business? What are the things that I need to know that I need to change? So, like, I just feel like you're always learning, right? Because if you're trying to grow, then you're doing something you're not doing now. So it's, you have to first figure out what is it that you don't know. And even when you think you know what you don't know, there's always surprises, right? That come out. And I think to me, that is entrepreneurship, is just learning to learn fast on your feet or find help. That's a big one, right? Asking for help from people that you know probably have the answer or part of the answer, I guess.
That's so interesting.
You can't be one of those people who thinks they know everything. I think you have to be the opposite to recognize, like, you have to be comfortable asking for help.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if someone claims that they know everything, it would probably be good life advice to just stay 10 feet away from them. I find the concept of testing the market with a crowdfunding approach pretty interesting. I am curious, how does one go about creating a crowdfunding campaign?
So I used Kickstarter, which actually made it very simple, right? The platform made it very simple, but you still need to go and do your video, and it's all about your network, right? Because you have to make sure. Right. So I learned while I was doing it that the first 48 hours, apparently, just based on their algorithms, is the most important. So, and luckily someone told me that. I had someone tell me that before we went live with the campaign. So I asked everyone in my network to go on and check us out, if it resonated with them, to purchase an apron. Because the way the algorithms work is that when they see that you've got momentum in the beginning, they will start promoting your project. If you don't get enough momentum, then it just gets buried, in the abyss and no one sees it. Whereas if you start doing well, then all of a sudden you're on their homepage and, they have their different categories, like, projects we love or this and that. And so you start showing up in these different categories, which is so important for the success of, for that to work. So just, I recommend it for anyone that has a physical product. Because it's such a cheap way to verify that people will be willing to spend that price point on your product.
Right.
And not only that, I still keep in touch with a lot of the people that, backed our Kickstarter. So people that pre-ordered an apron who, not my friends and family, but like people that just found us on Kickstarter and decided that we were worth it for them. We resonated with them enough for them to go and purchase an apron. I still keep in touch with a lot of those customers because they have become loyal customers. And to get that insight, what made you put your money here? Why did you invest in us? And then as we've grown, it's like, well, what else do you want to see us do? Like, what else do you think would be the next product that we should put in the market? So it's having this like tribe to start off with, that you can build. Wow. I think when you do a crowdfunding campaign.
Amazing. That is very, very cool. And you mentioned exploring retail. Aren't you already at Farm Boy?
So we are at Farm Boy, but at a different. I guess the difference is we're not in as a like a traditional vendor. So we work with their marketing team. So and that actually how that all started has become, it was interesting because I never thought of when I started this, I thought we would be very much like a e-commerce brand, like, so selling to, purely retail. And then as we started, we got inquiries from, like culinary schools. Oh, could you customize, put our branding on aprons and use our colors? And, of course we can. So we started working with businesses. And now I think it's over 70% of our revenues come from working with businesses.
Wow. Okay.
Especially in like hospitality and tourism, culinary schools, restaurant groups, cafes. I don't know if you're familiar with Balzac's Coffee.
I love, big fan.
Yeah. So they're baristas. Those are our aprons. So we make them for them.
No way. I didn't know that. Cool.
And last year we started working with Celebrity Cruises. So they offer culinary classes on all their ships. So we do their aprons for them. So just it's grown that way. And with Farm Boy, and I guess similar to probably how it is with Celebrity, it's very much a marketing thing for them. They want to show that they're connected to the community, they're giving back. And it was interesting because when I first started conversations with them, they were like, usually marketing is an expense, right? like it's, you get people in, but it's purely an expense. Whereas they were like, hey, we want our own custom apron. So they did a adult size apron and children's aprons with their logo and their branding on it. But they're selling them in the stores. So they're recouping their marketing expense that way, but still are giving back and have that connection to the community. And it's similar, I guess, with celebrity, right? For them, it was, yeah, we're giving back. And we also, with their aprons, they're made from a fabric that is made from recycled plastic bottles. Because last year, the whole cruise line decided to not use any single-use plastic. So we thought, well, this aligns with this initiative that you have. We'll make the aprons out of recycled plastic bottles. So it just aligns with their sustainability goals as well. So it's not so much as a, your traditional vendor, getting into a retail store and them just selling your product. It's, making it exclusive for that company, right? So
that's very interesting. Do you think for particularly social entrepreneurs, this is a way to get in front of more people, partnerships, and aligning with like enterprise size sustainability goals?
Yes, for sure. I think because so many companies now have goals of being, a good community partner, right? They want to show that they care about the community and that they're giving back. And for a lot of them, that's just, that means writing a check. They don't have the processes in place internally to do something. So they're like, you know what, there's already companies doing this. Let's just work with them, which is great. I think that provides great opportunity for companies, like Cooks Who Feed.
I love that.
So we've done gift boxes, and we've done custom products for companies like Moneris, for Deloitte. We've done that. And it's because, companies want to give gifts to their clients or employees that have impact, right? So I think it's a mandate for a lot of companies now, which is great. So yeah, I think it's an advantage. It definitely makes it an advantage for you as a company. If you are a social impact company, that's a pure advantage.
Absolutely. Very, very, very interesting. Because I was shopping at the Farm Boy near me, and I saw the Cooks Who Feed aprons, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like I remember attending the Idea Jam pitch, and just seeing it in Farm Boy was just like, this is amazing to see. It was very, very cool.
It's funny because it's funny that you say that, because I remember it is such a crazy feeling, like when you see your products, in the world. Like we've had people like, buy an apron off the site, take a photo, and they post it on their Instagram. And when that first started happening, I was kind of taken back. I'm like, oh my God, like people are, taking photos of it, or, they buy them for their kids and take photos. And then it was, it's a crazy feeling. And then I remember when we partnered with Farm Boy, and I remember like going into the store, and I'm like, I can't believe it. And I had my children with me, and I'm like, those are the aprons that were in the house last week.
I love that. Oh, that's so
I'm like, you remember that big shipment that came with all the boxes of aprons? And I'm like, that's like, they're here now. Like this, it's crazy. And I remember too, like when I went into, so I moved out to the Niagara region. So I don't see too many Balzac's coffees. Like I think the closest one to me is at Niagara on the Lake. And I was there with my children and just with some friends, and we went into Balzac's. I didn't even think. And then as I'm ordering, I'm like, oh my God, the barista is wearing our apron. And when I came home, I wrote to my contact at Balzac's and was like, I just have to tell you, like, I was there and saw them in the world and just want to thank you for this opportunity. Like, it was such a good feeling. And I was like, it really like made my week, like just to see like it out in the wild. It was so crazy. I'm like, this is and I don't think that'll ever go away. I think every time I see them, like see someone wearing our apron in the real world, I think it's going to be like, it's a crazy feeling.
I love that. I can't even imagine what it feels like as someone who literally created this product and brought it out into the world. Obviously, you've been doing this for a while. There's been highs and lows. But what has been the most memorable moment for you? I'm sure it's going to be tough to pick one, but like if you had to pick one, what would it be?
So I'll give you a good moment and a bad moment.
Perfect. Yeah. Sounds
let's start with the bad.
Okay. Okay.
COVID. So I launched Cook Sous Feed at the end of 2019. So I thought that was a great time to leave your corporate job and start a company. And I remember sitting, I tried to like get out of the house, and I was sitting at a cafe and I was working. And at this point, so in March of 2020, I had spent a good like 3-4 months trying to build relationships with like the culinary schools, some restaurant groups. Because I was like, yeah, we can do custom aprons for you. And it had gotten to the stage where it looked like at least 5, 6, 7 of them were going to move forward, right? And we're starting to see progress and starting to feel good about my choice about leaving my job. And then sitting in there, and all of a sudden this email comes in. And I've been watching the news. I heard about COVID, right? But it seems still like a distant thing, right? It didn't seem like something that was affecting us here. And I remember getting an email from one of the restaurant groups saying, hey, so we're shutting down, or something along those lines. We're moving to like takeout only. So we're not going to need, aprons right now for our servers. So this has to go on hold. And I remember thinking, okay, I guess that's a bit strange. And then literally within like a half an hour, I had like every lead that I'd ever worked on, like their emails were coming in. This is something that has to go on hold. This is we're not spending on anything that's not a necessity right now. We're not, culinary schools,
right.
Whatever. And I just remember feeling like just so deflated, and thinking like, how is this going to work now? Like, how is this going to happen? And then trying to like, get myself out of that way of thinking and to think, okay, well, what can we do to get past this? All right. Like, who out of hospitality can we promote? Because hospitality is shutting down, right? That whole sector went quiet, right? For a long time. So it's like, we can't survive. Who knows how long this is going to go on for? And then not only that, getting an email from my kids' school saying, now they're coming home. And I'm like, how am I supposed to work when kids are doing online schooling? So it was kind of like that, everything going wrong at the same time, right? And then I get
when it rains, it pours.
Yeah. So it's like, how am I supposed to work with three little people around me all the time? And they're supposed to be doing online school. And I know like my kids were like, my eldest at that time was in grade like 2. So everyone would need help just getting on the computer, right? So it's like, oh my goodness. And then getting an email, I think it was the next day, from India saying, the manufacturer in India saying, India's going on lockdown. So we're not producing anything. So that, that was,
wow.
Yeah. So I don't even know how, like, I don't think I was sane at that point.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question. I was like, how did you maintain your sanity?
I don't think I did. I think there was a lot of tears and like worried about like, oh my God, I need to start looking for a job, but this is probably the worst time to look for a job. Luckily, the manufacturer found ways to like still be able to do some work. Cause it was obviously like these women need money, right? Like you need to employ these women. So found a way to like do like shift work. So there was still social distancing. So they were producing a lot less. And I managed to, I started working with realtors. Cause it's funny. I realized, I was like, a lot of people were buying the aprons online as gifts. And I know that because they were shipping them to different addresses, like other than the billing address. And they were putting in gift notes. So I'm like, well, who would give an apron as a gift? I'm like, it would make a really nice housewarming gift. And then that's kind of when I thought, shoot, I'm going to reach out to all the realtors that I know, because there's so many realtors in Toronto, and ask them, would you give a custom apron? Like if we did your branding on it, would you include it as part of your closing gift? And then from there, getting on to builders. And then that saved us.
Wow.
Because hospitality shut down and we had just started. So we didn't have like all this traffic coming to our website. Like we had no traffic. It was like a trickle. Like we were just trying to build our online presence, right? It was just starting. So I'm like, I need something to just get us through this. And it was, the real estate community in Toronto. So that,
and also, I guess during the pandemic, because people assumed remote work was going to be forever, a lot of people started buying more houses.
Yeah. So, the market picked up, and people were cooking more at home.
True. Very, very true.
Because they couldn't go anymore to their favorite restaurant. They were cooking, and they had more time. So it was like people were cooking more at home. So putting out content for recipes and stuff started to like get more, like it was spreading faster. So that, I think, that saved us. Hands down, that saved us.
Very interesting.
And
then that's an incredible story. Wow.
And then I guess a really great moment was how we got onto celebrity, which is funny because it was a friend. One of my daughters, her mother works in sales for Celebrity Cruises, so she works with different agents across the province that sell Celebrity Cruises. And she approached me and she's like, do you think you can make a celebrity branded apron? I think it'd be a really cool gift to give to the agents. So I was like, of course we can. So we did that. We did that as Christmas gifts for the agents. And so by doing that, we became a vendor for Celebrity. And by being a vendor, you are invited to, when they do like inaugural cruises. So when they, have the first cruise on a new ship, you're invited. So you just have to pay for your ticket, but you can go on the cruise for free. And it's not too many vendors, I don't think, go. It's more like the celebrity staff, like their executives and stuff will all be there. Anyways, I knew that. So my friend, she reached out to me. She's like, hey, there's a new cruise ship that they're building. It's going to be ready this time. Do you want to come on the cruise? And she's like, the director of food and beverage will be there. The CEO will be there. So I just thought I have to go and see if there's a way that we can do more business with them, right? Like, how do I actually have a relationship with this brand? So I got there and I literally followed the CEO everywhere. Any event she was at, I went to, and I tried to come up with a really smart question for her to get to start to recognize me. And then I asked her for 5 minutes of her time. And I just said to her, this is why I'm a vendor. This is how I got on. So it's just, doing some work with some of the agents that sell your cruises, but I'd love to see how we can become more embedded. Like, could we provide the aprons for your servers, or could we, how could we become more involved? And she was like, the reality is, she's like, the aprons and stuff that we get for our kitchen staff or servers, we pay they're like $1, $2. Like, they're nothing fancy. And that's the budget that we have for that. So I was like, okay, there's no way. I'm like, we give more in that in donations to give our meal give back. So there's no way we can do that. But I took her card and I emailed her after and thanked her for her time and what have you. And then a few weeks later, I was like, I wonder if they give culinary classes. And I looked it up, and sure enough, they didn't. So I wrote to her and said, this is crazy, but I'm going to pitch it to you anyways. I'm like, the days that you are at sea, because when you dock, like, people leave the ship and they do all these excursions, and you guys offer all these excursions. But I'm like, the days that you are at sea, would you ever consider giving culinary classes? Because Celebrity is known for their food. Like, that's what kind of sets you apart from your competitors, is that culinary experience. Like, they have Michelin star chefs that do the menu and so on. I'm like, so you have probably a lot of people who are foodies on your ship. Have you ever thought of doing culinary classes? And I guess if you ever did go down that road, I would love to provide you with custom branded aprons that you can gift to the people taking these classes. And maybe it's a way for you to generate more income, right? So anyways, no, I didn't hear anything, but I do use something, I do have a software in my email where it tracks, when it's been opened and, where it's been opened. I started seeing the email getting opened all over the US. Like, she was sending it to whoever and it was getting sent to wherever. And I was like, okay, something's happening. So I could see that it was being sent to various places. She never emailed me back. And then about a week after, I get a call from the director of food and beverage saying, yeah, so we're going to start these culinary classes. And
no way.
So can you give us the design for the apron? I'm like, this is crazy. yeah. So that was a crazy moment.
Wow, that is it's one of the best stories I've ever heard. This is so cool.
Because it's when you're just starting, like you're nobody, right? You're like, that you're
Yeah.
nobody. So to get like a brand, a global brand to be like, yeah, we'll listen to your idea. We think it's good too. Like it was crazy.
I love that. And on the chef ambassadors, like would this be similar to the cruise celebrity chefs, or is that like a completely different?
So yeah, so we work with various chefs. The idea for that, so I'm bootstrapping this. So I don't have a huge marketing budget. So the way I thought would make sense for our retail side of the business was to work with chefs. They design a product, we name it after them, and then they would promote it to their fans. And that's how we've marketed. That's how we've done it from day one. So we have, so a lot of our tea towels and our linen napkins were designed by Chef Vikram Vij. He's based out of Vancouver. He was one of the Dragon Den. He was in the Dragon's Den, actually, one of the dragons, I think for a season or two. So he designed our tea towels and linen napkins, our first batch. And then we work with, Christine Cushing, Chef Romain Averil, Chef Devin Rajkumar. We just last year started working with some American chefs as well. So chefs off the Food Network. And it's working. Like they are promoting it to their fans. And that's how we've been marketing it. And it's also given us some PR.
I love that. That's very, very interesting. Now, if you had to share some advice for aspiring social entrepreneurs and you had to do it in 3 bullet points, what would it be?
So with respect to social entrepreneurship, I would say first thing is find people that share your values. Find the organizations that care about the same thing that you care about, that you're working towards, because they will support you, right? So that's another reason why I've been working with chefs, because a lot of all my chef partners care about things like food insecurity and food waste, and that's what makes them promote it. That's why they say yes to me, right? Companies within food or tourism or hospitality that want to have an impact. I mean, the way I look at it for myself is, okay, all these companies, they all need to buy aprons. So if I can, why wouldn't they work with us? You have to be, I guess, so that's one, look for your tribe, look for your people that share the same values. The second thing is always, whatever you thought this was going to be, it's not going to be that. Like, be ready to be, I guess, bendable and think of different, there's always a solution. I think in solutions. I hate it when people tell me things cannot be done. I'm like, no. Like, change the way you think and tell me how we can make this work, or how can we make some variation of this work, right? For me, the whole thing is creating impact, is providing meals. So, for example, our retail line is like, for our aprons, it's one apron is 100 meals. When I started this company, that's what I had in my head, one apron, 100 meals. When we work with hospitality, especially restaurants, that doesn't work, because now we're too expensive, right? They have tight budgets to work with. So for certain businesses, like especially those in hospitality and restaurants, we say, okay, well, let's do a 1 apron equals 10 meals, because you're still having impact. You're still buying fair trade. You're still buying better quality, sustainable fabrics. So it's still a win-win. But now we get to fit within your budget, and it's not something like, why would you not try us then, right? So that, like, you have to be able to work with what you have and try to make it work. And then I think my last point, which I think whether you have a social mission or not, is just keep moving forward. Just forget, there's always going to be fear, right? You're always going to have anxiety. That's part of being an entrepreneur. That also is why it's kind of exciting, right? Like, that fear is always going to be there, but how do you turn the fear into excitement so that it doesn't stop you? Never let that fear stop you. Try to turn it around, try to reframe it in your mind so that you see it more as excited to kind of do it because it's so scary, right? And just keep even if it just means tiny steps every day, just tiny steps, right? Because as you know, little steps every day add up to huge distances after a period of time. So it's just like, it's okay. Like I cringe when people say, get over your fear. I'm like, no, you just can't get over it. Everything is scary. You're doing things that you've never done before. That's scary. And it's scary when you don't even know what you don't know, but you know, there's a lot you don't know, right? So how do you not be afraid? It's like if you can't swim and you're jumping in a pool and you don't even know how deep it is, that would be terrifying. So
Absolutely.
It is scary, but be confident and know that you'll survive. Like, just do it and you'll survive. You'll figure it out as you go.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. I have one last question for you, and this is probably the most important question you have ever been asked in your life. So are you ready for it?
All right, give it to me.
The question is, when you walk into a room, what would your theme song be?
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. So the song that I listen to, because I'm not a salesperson. It makes me nauseous when I have to like do a cold call or something. Like, I'm just really bad. But the song I listen to before going into like a meeting or trying to get myself into that space of, okay, now I'm going to call someone and pitch them our business, is Lose Yourself by Eminem. I don't know why.
Oh, that's sick. I love that. That's a great song.
But I just find that's what pumps me up. Like, it gets me ready. It gives me that confidence. And it's always been that song. Like, it's always been. And when I'm having like when I've had like a bad meeting or like a bunch of no's, 'cause, you're going to have the no's. I get a lot of more no's than yeses. When I listen to that, it just kind of resets me to have a positive mindset again. It always works. So
we gotta get a cook who feed apron to Eminem ASAP.
Well, what's funny you say that. Apparently he does really enjoy cooking. And
there you go. All right.
Yeah. And he opened up
we'll share it on social and tag him into it, and maybe, who knows, maybe.
And he started a restaurant apparently a few years back. I'm like, that's hilarious. Cool. Yeah. Called it has to do with the song. It's called like Mom Spaghetti or something.
I was just about to ask, is it called Mom Spaghetti?
It is.
No way. Okay.
Or it's something like a play on words about the song, right? It's something like that. But yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, that's crazy. I'm like, how do we get an apron to him?
All right, like maybe we'll try and make it trend and try and get one apron over to him that says 8 Mile. But the 8 is like spaghetti.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that'd be so cute.
Awesome. Seema, thank you so much for your time. This was like, I've had some very interesting guests on the show, and I've enjoyed every single episode, but I think this was my favorite episode to record. It was so much fun. I learned a ton. You are absolutely incredible, and all the best with everything. I think everyone should have a cook who feed apron. I'm actually going to go walk to my farm boy now, pick up my groceries and an apron as well, and send you a picture wearing it.
Yes, make sure you take a photo of yourself and tag. So one thing I didn't mention is, so all of our products have a tag that explains the impact, and it's signed by the lady who made it. So make sure if you post a picture,
I love that,
to tag us, and you can use like hashtag IFed100 or hashtag she made my apron, but mention who made your apron, because we like the ladies love going on social and like seeing their name and like someone is wearing something they made, right? Like, it's that same feeling, like I said, when you go and you see your stuff in the wild, your product in the wild. Like, for them, it's that feeling. So yeah, make sure you put in your post who made your apron.
Done. I will do it today itself. I love that.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you to everyone who listened in. I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did, if not more. And good luck, Seema. We look forward to following your journey along.
Thank you so much.